Hey Rayfield, it's Mr. Devon. Today we're going to talk about 6 tips to taking excellent pictures or videos. Now, today's video is going to focus on the craft and not the device, okay? So we're not focused so much on am I using a smartphone, am I using a camera, am I using a tablet? We're gonna focus on just your ability to make or take great video or pictures. Now, there's 6 points involved, and I've learned all 6 of them from what we call trial and error. Meaning, I tried it, it didn't work. I tried it again, it didn't work. I tried something else, and then it finally worked. So I'm going to walk you through what I've learned about taking great pictures, and hopefully you will begin to take great pictures yourself. Okay? Number 1, the key to taking great pictures is a thing we call lighting. So the thing about having the right light is all depending on the type of picture you want to take or the type of video you want to do. Now, scary movies or very what we call moody images that are supposed to look sad, oftentimes have a lot of shadows. And things that are supposed to be happy oftentimes have very little shadows. They're very bright. So when it comes to lighting, it's important to know your mood for your video, your film, or your picture. And it's also important to know what effect you want to have. Do I just want to look good on camera? If I want to just look good on camera, then I'm not as focused on the effect. I'm more focused on making sure that I'm seeing clearly. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can light yourself. You can light yourself from the top. By lighting yourself from the top, what you do is you take care of any shadows that may be on your face. But if you're like me and you're wearing a cap, you might get partial shadow. So all of that area there is a shadow. So you got to really think about what you're trying to achieve with your picture. Another thing that you can do with lighting is you can put light to the front of you. So I have a light behind me. I'm going to turn this off. So if I turn this light off and we just use the light in front of me, we all see how I look. Now, the shadows are still there, but it's not as vivid, it's not as bright. But I'm going to switch it up. Let's say I turn off that camera, that light, and then I turn on this light. Now I look really dark because of a thing called light displacement, I think it is. With the light being behind me and me being in front of the light, I am doing what is called eclipsing the light. So instead of the light being able to shine on my face, it's actually making the camera adjust for the brighter spots, which is the light behind me. So you have to pay attention. To those things as well. Make sure that your lighting is proper. Sometimes you have to put the lighting to the side and not directly on you. This is also important when you're doing things like Zoom and you're live streaming. Being on video, being on camera, or being in front of a photo taking device, camera of any type. The camera has one job, to capture as much of the image as possible, and it uses light to capture that. So the more light you have, the more that camera is going to be able to pick up. The less light you have, the harder it is for the camera to take your image. So make sure that your lighting is the right way. Make sure you test it before you take your picture or your photo. See if you want light above you, light behind you, light in front of you. It all, again, depends on your effect. The second tip to taking great photos is the position of your camera. Now, it's important to know that where your camera sits can really affect your picture. So if I were to be here to the side of the screen, right, that's a different effect from being to this side of the screen, which is also a different effect from being smack in the middle of the screen. But not just about how you're positioned on the screen, it's also about how close you are to the screen. So I could be this close doing this video. Now you see all my business. Or I could be further back. And by being all the way back here, you see more, but it's not the same effect. So you got to also think about that too. How close you are to your camera. Now, a lot of you are newer to technology and you take pictures or video very close to the camera. Sometimes when you turn your camera on for Zoom, you're like here. Hey, can you hear me? You guys there? I'm right here. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you see me? A lot of times it's what you do. Some people are so far back, they're all the way back there. Neither one is that good. So it's important to take a look at yourself and see how you look on camera by using your selfie camera. If you have more if you have more upgraded equipment like a special camera, you can also use the screen on your camera to see how you look. But remember, you don't want to be too close and you don't want to be too far. If you do that, then what happens is you throw off the image. Now, the next important thing about taking great pictures is a little thing called grids. So many of you may not be familiar with this, but a lot of cameras and smart devices, including your phone today, can put up a grid to take your picture. Now, I use a grid to take video because by using the grid, if I fit myself in the right place, I can use my video the wide way and the long way, or the tall way, okay? We call this landscape and we call this portrait. By being in the middle of the grid, you get 9 boxes. So I'm gonna put up a graphic for you, okay? Now you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes. By me putting my face, or what the important thing of the video or picture is, in the middle square, which would be number 5 if you're counting from the top, or the bottom if you start at the left or right, this will always be square 5. I'll show you what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or how about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This middle square is 5. And so if I put my face, which in this case is the most important part, in square number 5, I can actually take this video and use it vertically for my stories like on Instagram, or I can switch it the wide way for YouTube so that you get the full landscape video. That's the beauty of using those grids. Now, how do you turn those grids on your phone? Well, I'm going to show you based on an Android and based on an iPhone. So with the iPhone, what you want to do is you want to go to your settings. Then you want to scroll all the way down to camera. Once you get to camera, you want to tap camera. And then you want to look at your settings there. And there should be an option to turn on your grid. Turn your grid on. Let's say you have an Android device. Okay, so for an Android device, to figure out where the grid is, you want to go to your camera. Then you want to look for the little gear icon at the top corner. Tap that icon. It's then going to bring you to your menu. On your menu, you want to scroll until you see something that says grid, G-R-I-D. And then you want to tap to turn that on. You're going to leave your settings and go back. And once you finally get there, you should see the grid. Okay, you guys see the grid? You see those lines very thinly there? There's your grid. Use that grid when you take your pictures, when you do your video, because it's going to fit you right in the middle, so your video can now be used in different spaces. All right? The next point is angles. It's important to know your angles. So if you're like me, you're very self-conscious of how you look on camera. You want to look your best. So you got to be aware of your angles. Sometimes people like to take pictures like this. It doesn't look as good. Some people take pictures like this. Doesn't look as good either. So you got to know what angles, at which angles do you look best on camera. Some women take pictures like this, and they actually look really nice. Other women take pictures like that, and it doesn't work for them the same. So know your angles. And it's also important to know how you angle your phone, your camera, your tablet, whatever device you're using. The right angles get the right pictures. You don't want your camera to be tilted too far back, because then it shows a lot of what's under. You don't want it to be too far forward, because it may not even capture your face. And we want to see your face. So take the best pictures that way. So let's say you're taking a selfie, right? In the process of taking a selfie, sometimes you want to take the picture right here with the device right in front of your face. That doesn't always work. It doesn't get the best angles, okay? So it's important to know what angles work by also moving your device around. I find that if I take a picture like this, I look better. If I take a picture like this, I look like somebody's auntie. You know, it's just not the same. So you want to make sure that you take your photos at the right angles to get the best shot. Another tip on taking great photos is also think about what you do with your face. There are some people when they take photos, their eyes get bigger. There's some people they show all their teeth. I'm not going to demonstrate it, but they show all their teeth. What you want to do is you want to play around with what looks best. Some people poke their lips out to do what's called duck lips. You know, I probably size of my lips. I mean, lips are pretty big. You know, I'm not ashamed. It's actually a compliment. I'm just saying, with the size of my lips, I probably shouldn't do duck lips. Okay, but see, I know this from doing my own videos. However, I do find if I push my lips out just a little bit, when I take pictures, it actually looks good. So, see that? You guys see the difference? I'm going to show you regular, and then I'll show you lips pushed out. So here's regular. Here's lips pushed out. Looks good, right? I know. You don't have to tell me. I know. So take into consideration how your lips are when you take your photos. Another thing you can do to make great photos or videos is play around with your camera settings. Now, a lot of devices, especially the iPhone, has what's called frames per second. Now, let me break down what frames per second means. You ever watch a live TV show like the news or football, and it looks like you're there? It looks like you could touch what's on the screen. You use 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second for that. It has something to do with how fast the camera is recording. But think about movies. And movies don't look like you can reach out and touch it. Movies are a bit flatter. That's because they oftentimes use 24 frames per second or something around that. This is important because it affects the way your video looks. So here's a clip of me at 24 frames per second. Okay, remember how that looked? Kind of like a movie. It's flat, right? Now, here's a frame of me, or here's a video of me at 30 frames per second. Got that? Yeah, so you see the difference. So you want to look at your settings and make sure you choose the right frames per second. Maybe you don't want the movie look. Maybe you do want it to look live, like you could just reach out and touch what's on the camera. Be aware of that and make a decision based on that. Once you've done that, then you can start to record and know how great your video is going to look. You can also use similar settings for taking photos. Now, I have to let you know, on your devices, the selfie camera can only go up to 30 frames per second, so you won't get the movie look with the selfie camera. Okay, you can only get that with the back camera. If you use your selfie camera, you can only get 30 frames per second, maybe even 60 frames per second. So keep that in mind, okay? Another big tip when it comes to taking great videos and photos is look at the lens. You see that little thing right there? Yeah. See that little thing right there? See how close I got? It was way too close, right? That little lens that picks up your face is important to look into it. They say that when you take pictures or you do videos, you communicate with your eyes, okay? The cameras pick up on so much. So make sure you're looking into that camera and you're saying something with your eyes. Eyes are important. You know, if you want to take a great selfie, sometimes you don't want to look to the side. You don't want to look past the camera. You don't want to be looking at the screen. You see how my eyes are not matching here? Because I'm looking at the screen. But if I look there, you can see my eyes are matching up. So be sure to look into the camera and say something with your eyes. What you're thinking, let it show on your face, but have happy thoughts. So look into the lens. The last tip for this video is this. You have to have enough space around your focal point. So remember when I mentioned the grid, right? And always putting the most important part inside of square number 5. Boom, square number 5, right there. The importance of having enough space around your focal point. So your focal point goes here in that box, but having the space around your focal point, what that allows you to do is it also allows you to create more with that photo. Sometimes people want to see the colors that surround you. It does what we call contrast, okay? Contrast is really good because it separates things in the picture. So the more contrast you have, the more separation of things you get versus things being blurred together. Let's use what you're looking at, for example. You see the clipboard right here, and you see the light and the wall, right? But you see how the clipboard kind of goes into the light? There's no real separation, there's no contrast. That doesn't always look good. But then you take me and the chair behind me, or me versus the wall. You can see the clear outline of me and how I'm separate. Pay attention to the amount of space around you, because the less space there is, the harder it is for you to get that contrast. So it's important. Okay, I'm going to give you one bonus tip before we go. Now, this is a big one. Okay, not everybody's going to be able to do this because your device can't do it. But for the people who can do it, there's a little thing called depth of field. Here's an example. This is a clip of Gayle King doing an interview with someone in their home. Now, you notice how their background is out of focus. It's quite blurred. That's because they changed their depth of field. So here's what that basically means. When your depth of field is set a certain way, everything closer to the camera is seen clearly, and everything that's further away is blurred out. You can also do it where everything that's close to the camera is blurred out and everything that's farther away is clear. Now, why would you use depth of field? Well, depth of field is great for when you don't want to have a green screen, or you don't want to use a solid background. Maybe you don't want to use your walls. Maybe you're doing a video or taking a photo in a place that's crowded or that has a lot of trash, but you really like the way the sky looks. Well, use depth of field to allow you to be in focus and your background to be out of focus, okay? Now, you can use depth of field with things like your iPhone. You can use it on some Android devices, and you can do it with a type of camera known as a DSLR, okay? So Canon, Nikon, those are companies that make DSLR cameras, and the ability to change the depth of field is possible with these devices. If your device does not have depth of field, what you can do is download an app that will simulate what is depth of field. Okay, so while it may not be programmed into your camera, it may have a feature that can let your camera do an adjustment of depth of field. There is an app for the iPhone called Focus. So you download the Focus app and you're able to toy around with depth of field. And you're going to notice how much better your pictures and your videos look when you toy around with and adjust your depth of field. So again, remember, with depth of field, you can adjust it where items closer to your camera are in focus and items further away are out of focus, and vice versa. Okay? Thank you guys for watching today. Until next time, keep playing with your tech until you break it. Fix it and then break it again. I'll see you guys next time.